Thank you guys for coming today. This is kind of a new experimental class. I'm not sure how often this has been done at events, but I'm excited to try it out today. And the idea is just to let people bring whatever questions they have into a friendly space and get one person's perspective answering them. So I can say that this isn't a diversity and inclusion class because I'm not qualified to teach that. All I can really do is just comment on my own experiences and talk about some of the stuff that's been published within Amtgard. Do I need to worry about these sounds?
Oh, no, you don't. Sorry. That's just saying that someone is waiting to be let in and Fitz and I are watching it. So don't worry about the noise.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I just heard it and
I forgot to tell you about that.
No worries. So as a white person, as a cis person, as someone who's straight, there's a lot of experiences I don't know about. So I've put a list at the end of some places you can find other Amtgarders discussing their various experiences. And I definitely suggest that everyone here go listen and watch those things if you haven't already. Because as I said, you're getting one player's opinion. But with that, if you're up for it, does anyone want to introduce yourself and bring up any topics? I do have some conversation starters, but I don't want to steamroll any questions somebody brought. Also, I can't see the chat. That's useful. Can I see it now? Nope.
If it's helpful, I can check chat and make sure there's nobody asking questions in there.
That's actually part of the reason I'm here. So I've got that covered. And right
fine.
now, there's nothing going on.
Perfect.
Who's talking? Maybe you should introduce yourself.
I am Lord Aaron M. Fateshand. I'm the current emperor, one of the people who helped put this event together, and I'm basically here for help moderating. So
Quiet, you're not being very quiet. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm so quiet. I'm not very quiet. I'm the regent of the Iron Mountains. I'm here to mostly engage with the announcers, and if everybody if people have cool questions, awesome. If not, I will ask other questions.
Cool. Okay. I made some slides with some discussion points, and I tried to write these as discussion points and not so much in a judgy way. So has anyone here heard any of these things said in your kingdom?
Cries slightly.
Actually, you know what? I haven't heard it in my current kingdom. I have heard it in the past. So good for you guys.
Ow, my soul.
Yeah.
So based on the reaction I'm getting, we might be on the same page about many of these comments. But does anyone want to say something about what it's like to hear this?
So I actually have heard the top one myself, because I am not somebody who carries a heavy stick by any means. It tends to be a little bit lighter touch just because I physically don't have the strength to put into it. And honestly, it's frustrating, not just from a physical strength perspective, but because I know that should never be needed. If the shot's making good contact, it shouldn't matter how much force is behind it.
I've definitely heard all of these.
Yes, as a spoiler, Brittany, I'm very glad you have not heard these yet here, but I definitely have.
To be fair, I haven't heard them here because I don't fight here, because I heard them so much in my past life that I stopped participating. So it's a it's a special kind of situation. And I often heard them directed at high schoolers, which I think is a particular kind of gross, in my opinion.
Oh no. Yes, these are definitely not things. I feel like the first two are pretty obvious. Oops, I clicked and something happened. I feel like the first two are pretty obvious as to why that's not good, because it can lead to people getting hurt, it can lead to everyone having a bad time. And the last one is maybe a little less obvious. But if a lot of people in the field are going around insisting that they just fight everyone the same, that can mean that they don't adapt to the person they're actually fighting. And that can lead to people, at the worst case, that can lead to someone getting hurt because they have no idea what they're doing. It's their second day and someone swings at them really hard and they have no idea how to deal with that. And then the person who's going around hurting people, just their argument is, oh no, I just fight everyone the same. They should deal with it.
I've definitely heard that one. I'm immediate knee-jerk reaction is it's like a flimsy justification. I feel like it sometimes comes from a place of I'm trying to treat everyone the same, so I'll fight everyone the same. But I feel like in practice, it definitely falls way flat of that, and the intent doesn't match up with the ill effects of that kind of statement. It's kind of like saying, I don't see color, which the notion, the intent is not like malevolent, but it's not a good solution.
Well, in practice, it's not true, right? There's no one in the world who is fighting me and who is fighting Eggman the same. They're not approaching those situations in the same way, so that's not real.
Yes, I mean, that's also true.
Very flimsy.
So
Go ahead.
doesn't it seem like that last one usually comes into play with around the same type of incidents that you get if you can't take a hit, get off the field?
Yes, it really does. Either that or it comes into play. I mean, you'll hear this too. You'll hear maybe a woman bring up, I don't want to be treated differently. I want everyone to just fight me the same, which was me. That was definitely me as I was getting started. And then I heard enough stories of people getting hurt and realized that was not a good attitude for me to have, and started trying to encourage people to scale instead. Which, as long as we have a game where we just throw everyone on the field together in a big group, I think scaling is very useful in just growing your park, honestly. You want new players to have a good time and come back.
What do you mean by scaling?
Scaling. Sorry, yes, I should explain what I mean. I mean, basically what Brittany said about there's no world in which someone is fighting Brittany and fighting Eggman and approaching those two fights in exactly the same way. Because Eggman has been playing through, I'm going to get this wrong, years and years and years, and fighting for most of them, and he's very tall and very big, and I'm not going to worry about hurting him, right? And I'm not going to worry about hurting Brittany, but I'll definitely probably not swing. I mean, I don't feel like I hit hard, but I'll be conscious that if I swing hard, Brittany might have a bad time. Or if I move really fast and almost run over her, I would feel worse about that, because there's no way I could knock Eggman down, right? But Brittany and I are about the same size, so if I crash straight into her, that might be a problem, right? Sorry, Brittany, I'm picking on you because you said something.
No, it's a good example.
Yeah.
I think you could knock Eggman down. You just have to tell him his shoe's untied.
That would only work if he ever put on shoes, though.
No, but see, the confusion is when you get him, where he's like, I never wear shoes. You know that. Oh.
I made this the first slide because everything on this slide has to do with the idea that people can get hurt in this game if we don't use some common sense, right? Because it's a combat sport. We're using light weapons, we're using padded weapons, but it's not zero risk. And if people have the sort of bad attitudes that these quotes line up with, then it's riskier. And it's not equal risk for everybody either, because someone who's new, someone who's smaller, someone with less athletic background, those are things that could describe many women, many non-male players, not everyone. So I'm not making a blanket statement that that's true of literally everyone, just proportionally, these bad attitudes are worse. Does that make sense? Am I getting my point across at all?
I think you could expand it, like basically you're prioritizing safety over the notion of fighting people all the same, or I just hit everyone super hard because that's how I fight, or justifications like that, when really that's not the point. That's like not the first priority of the game. Like safety should be your concern regardless. And if you're hitting people who are smaller, or who even take, like flipping it on its ear with Eggman, like he has chronic injuries. If you're stroking Eggman too, you're still not playing safely.
Right.
I think to Annette's point, though, there is a level for non-male participants that is fundamentally like a little bit scarier, because a lot of people, again, no blanket statements, but a lot of people are conditioned to find a situation where a lot of people who are bigger and taller and stronger and male running around you is fundamentally a little bit of a scary experience. And so perhaps you do scale that interaction knowing that it's going to be tougher for the person that you're with or that you're around.
Yeah. Okay. I put that first because it was the most important one, but the second group of things also feels important. When I move the pictures of you guys and zoom around, is that covering my slide for just me or for everybody?
I see just the slide.
Just for you.
It's just for you. No worries.
Okay, excellent. So, do you guys hear these statements in your kingdom?
I know I hear these statements in my kingdom quite a bit.
And I don't think I saw you join. Which kingdom is that, if you're willing to share?
I'm from Westmarch.
Awesome, thank you for hopping on.
I've definitely heard those, most of them.
The second to last one gets me.
The second one bothers me consistently.
Yep.
Oh, I heard the second to last one like way back too. Definitely.
Same.
Oh.
The very last one is the one I hear the most, as well as the one above it.
Yeah. It's the theme on this slide is bad teaching in different variations. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to troll, right? I'm not trying to argue that there was no time this could ever be true, but the mental game then, I guess, is the most ambiguous for me, because yes, it is a mental game. I mean, every sport is kind of a mental game, but then it's said to somebody who's just been explaining some kind of physical difficulty they're having. It's really not helpful.
Yeah, no, that seems like especially true with if I'm squaring off with a net, I'm a lot taller and have more reach than a net. And if I say it's a mental game, I don't know if that really gives her any helpful advice.
Well, and that first one seems like it could be downright dangerous, telling someone to just power through something that hurts. They could actually injure themselves doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's why that's on this slide.
That first one definitely seems like it's less prevalent nowadays. I feel like that one was like an older mentality of every warlord has crap knees now kind of mentality. I think lately we're trying to take care of ourselves better, hopefully.
I haven't seen the first one said, but I've seen it in one of the newer players' training that they got from someone that they were belted to, and just wanted to.
Can we invite them to this discussion?
What?
Can we invite them here? Just like, hey, you should hear this.
No, I think that they're good. They're better off currently.
That's good. Yeah, so I think sometimes it's just a miscommunication thing. Like maybe the person who's loaning isn't saying very explicitly that this hurts. Maybe they say something like, this feels weird. Maybe they say, this isn't really working. Or maybe they do say, hey, this kind of makes my wrist hurt. Because I know from my end, I keep running into women. I don't know if this may also happen to others that I haven't talked to, but I keep having conversations like, I'm trying to do this and it hurts, and so told me just to keep trying it, and it doesn't work, help. So I know this is out there being said because I get to hear from all the people, like Denki was saying, who have had it said to them at some point. The swing with your hips thing it's a myth. There was an entire class yesterday that spent a section talking about the fact that this is a myth and what the actual true version is. But I'm not going to say there's no difference between body mechanics between different players, but there's less difference than you would think. It's just that people who are tall and strong can get away with doing everything badly. Does that make sense?
Form versus brute strength.
Yes. And it's not great for someone who's strong either. I mean, what will happen is, like Quiet was saying, there's a reason why everyone seems to be hurt after they've been fighting seriously for however many years.
Yeah, I've heard the hips thing before, but it feels like oh no, you have a different skeleton than I do. So here's my basic knowledge that I heard once that sounds like it makes sense, but it really doesn't. Like, I don't think anybody who's like seriously studied like body mechanics or anything like that still says girls need to swing with their hips. And then they probably do.
I
wish they didn't.
Something I consistently hear from people, or at least one person that is a stick jock in the kingdom.
Do they try to describe it by then moving their body in a really weird way to try to show how their body moves
differently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, quick point. Dallin threw a question in chat. Doesn't most of this come down to conscientiousness, the ability to play while still being aware that other people exist and have different needs? I feel like there's a fair amount of laziness, for lack of a better word, about thinking beyond one's own experience.
Yes, that's a perfect summary of most of this class, just playing while being aware that other people exist. And it's not about taking away anybody's fun. It's not about I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what some of the advocates in Amtgard want. And I know Dallin isn't the person who has these misconceptions, but things we're not trying to do, we're not trying to take away all the fun. We're not trying to say that you're not allowed to be competitive. We're not trying to say that no one gets to fight their best anymore. All we're trying to say, like on the previous slide, the only point was, hey, maybe don't hurt people. Maybe be aware that other people at your field experience this differently. And this slide is basically the same point, only about teaching. Like if you want to teach, that's awesome. I'm not saying that teaching is bad or that people shouldn't do it. The point is just don't be dismissive, and do listen, and like Dallin said, be aware of other people's experiences and that they might not exactly match my experience or your experience. Like I'm not sure if anyone here would describe themselves as the way they learned fighting was just by getting hit a lot, but I know that's how a number of people have described that, oh, well, I learned everything just by getting hit a lot.
It's how I didn't learn fighting. I got hit a lot and I got tired of going home with bruises, and so I stopped because it seemed bad and not fun. And like, I don't think that's true anymore, but that was my take home at the time.
Which is entirely reasonable. And like
Yeah.
that is, go ahead.
Like I had a lot of people try to teach me how to fight, and their idea of teaching me how to fight was to hit in the same spot over and over and over and over and over again, so that I would, quote, learn how to block it. Except that didn't work well, and that's not how I learn. So doing something like that is not going to work for everyone. Might work for somebody, but that somebody isn't me. And when you're not listening to your student telling you their needs, it makes it even harder to try and learn something that already has a gate.
Yeah. For what it's worth, that isn't a teaching method. So I said I wasn't going to be negative in this class. A much better teaching method would involve showing the person you're working with how to block the thing, and then going through it slowly and being like, hey, I noticed that I landed this shot a few times. Do you want to talk about it? And wait for them to say yes. And then if they do want feedback, show them something like, you can block that by putting your hand here instead of there. And then working through it slowly enough that they can succeed. Like that's what teaching someone to block in a good way would look like. And another myth is we want special treatment. I don't think anything I just said was special treatment. As far as I'm concerned, we can just make that the new way of teaching and tell everyone to stop teaching anyone by you'll just get hit a lot and figure it out. And that would be a net improvement.
So you mean actually teaching and not having them try and figure it out through brute force?
Uh-huh.
Or being your personal pal.
Now, in fairness, I think this has actually taught Brittany to be the most proficient fighter among all of us, because no one has hit her in years, frankly. So
that's
Warlord?
how you do.
This is true. This is very true.
I mean, they definitely taught her. So, oh, I found the best way not to ever get hit. Perfect. Which
The only instruction I got was don't get hit.
like
You followed it to a T.
The only winning strategy is not to play.
I mean, yeah. If anyone was wondering whether this matters, yes, it it definitely matters. It can make people decide to leave. It can make people decide to not fight, even if they stay in the game. And if we want to grow, if you want to grow the community, we need people to have good experiences.
That's a really good one. That's like a video game. If you can't win the video game, eventually you stop playing. Like there's a certain mindset of like really difficult, super difficult games where the point is to be difficult and you're going to die 5,000 times. And some people are like, that sounds great, I'm going to do that. But that doesn't seem like a game that's got a lot of people.
Yeah. And not to be discouraging, I mean, if you hang around long enough, you eventually learn things by accident and just by sort of eventually getting better in a haphazard way. That's what happened to me. And eventually I got some mill. I ran into people who knew how to teach mill, and I was able to level up from there. So I'm not saying that anyone should quit if they can't find a good teacher. It's just, if we as a community want people to stay, we need to do better than what's on this slide.
Fate, you catch Denkri's comment?
Yes, it says, weirdly opposite, when I was trying to get someone used to fighting who had been playing for as long or longer than I just made a point to block their shots and give them pointers as they went. You sometimes need to get non-men used to the idea of hitting with a weapon.
Yes. Yes, that's something that happens at the Denver field. I mean, you can tell they're interested. Like they came over, they asked what's up. They kind of want to hold on to the sword, but they're not like sure if they want to hit a person with it. Like they do and they don't. So one thing I'll do is pick up a shield and invite someone to try hitting that, because that's like, it feels less scary if you're swinging at a big giant target and instead of swinging at a person, and then you can like move on to see if you hit me, it's fine. So yeah, definitely that's a good point. Just like be patient with people. Be patient with people who aren't quite sure if this is what they want to do, and just let people dip in, dip out, be as casual or serious as they want to. Any more comments on things on this slide?
I'm thinking about like a non-specific questions in general, but that can wait for like Q&A at the end.
Okay, there's one more of these talking points, and this is an easy one, I think, because I don't expect anyone in this audience to look at these and go like, that all seems fine. But these are all things that I've heard said in the IM in the last few years. So I love my kingdom. I think we're great. I would love to never hear any of these said again. And when this sort of thing is, I know, I think I'm probably preaching to the choir, but this doesn't make people feel welcome.
Yeah, I've definitely said the last one. I gotta not do that anymore.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it. I know, I'm not saying that these all come from bad intent. It's just maybe they're trying to be funny. I don't know. If you want to say no quiet, you're welcome to, but you don't have to.
No, and with I've definitely seen the instance of like a non-male fighter fighting a male fighter, and the surrounding spectators. It's sort of a weird encouraging them to kick the male fighters' butts, but it's also not. It's definitely not helpful. It's definitely not. I'll say proactive or progressive in any sense. It's basically quick, hit them in that vital spot. That'll hurt them. Then you'll win. Which it's happened. I've definitely participated in that, and I think I could probably think of something more productive to say.
I really appreciate you being willing to think about that.
Yeah, that last one's particularly nasty if someone's coming up at you advocating something along that lines and you're holding a bow.
Ooh.
Oh no, that comes up a lot with archery. Definitely. Like it's just I think it's like a natural thing of you're aiming for the center of mass on a target and you have a very limited amount of control on one of your arrows, so it just people get knocked down.
No, I'm talking being encouraged to shoot for the groin.
That too. No, absolutely. I don't like that. It just I think it just happens a lot because of how the physics of the arrows works, and you're aiming for the center of mass and it drops a little bit, and that's right in that whole area.
I mean, ironically, at that kind of range with the drop you're seeing, you're almost better off aiming for the face because then you'll actually hit center mass, but at the same time, you don't want to encourage people to aim for the face.
Yeah, no. But no, that's like archery. That's like a whole side tangent. I don't want to eat time.
I mean, it's still relevant because, I mean, like, it is a legal target. It's just like, if you aim there, you're a joke and you shouldn't.
I think the take home for all of these is that they're minimizing, right? Like hit him in the junk implies that you are not capable of defeating this person on your own in a normal, like dignified manner. Your only option is to hit them in the genitals.
Yeah, no, you're right. Thank you. I was trying to think of the word.
All of them are minimizing.
It's like you can't win fairly, you have to cheat to win. That's
right.
what I was trying to think of. Thank you.
And I know the third one sounds like it's a compliment also. Like, wow, you're really good. I didn't expect you to be that good. It sounds like a compliment, and I'm sure it's coming from a place of, oh, I want to encourage this person. But if you want to give someone a compliment, it's going to come across a lot better if you talk about something they did. Like, oh, that was a great save. Oh, nice skill. Val, thanks for capturing that flag for us. Like, all of those things are stuff I would be genuinely happy to hear. But if someone just starts coming out of nowhere and talking about you're really good, especially when like there's Eggman and Garion and these are local fighters who are actually genuinely really good at our field for those out of kingdom. When I'm very far from the best person on the field, it's very awkward when someone is just like, oh, Val, you seem really good at this.
This one creeps me out because it sounds a lot like negging. Wow, you're really good for all of your limitations. Like it's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Like it's like they kick you in the shin first, and then they're like, "But good job."
And I don't think I'm sure it's not intentional. It's just if you want to make the compliment feel good. For me, and this would be if other people have opinions about compliments you like, this would be a great place to say them or put them in the chat. But for me, I love hearing about a thing I actually did that they liked.
I can do a direct one. I specifically do not enjoy the fact that I cannot get around Annette's shield work because she's faster with her blocking than I am with my striking. So I like that. I hate that.
Cool. I'm very happy not to have to sit here and argue on this slide about why some of these things are actually fine. This is a great class. I love this entire audience.
Just wow.
I mean, I've had to argue, maybe not about all of them, but I've definitely had discussions about most of the things on here, and that was the worst.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay, finally. I have to go in just a minute, but I wanted to make a comment about the hit him in the junk thing.
Yes.
I have had to do a lot of arguing against people making jokes about their junk, hitting each other in the junk, like dramatically falling on the ground and rolling around and then, talking about it, because not only from the perspective, but, it's a perspective that not very many people think about. Like, I have dysphoria. So when I'm standing around and people are like, guys get hit in the dick all the time, I don't have one. So that kind of makes it uncomfortable for me being on the field. And I know it makes it uncomfortable for other trans folks on the field to constantly have allusions to their genitals made. But then also, it's just not, it's not something that's cool to do to people. You can actually do real damage. Like my brother-in-law took real damage to his genitals because a person decided that they were going to crank an Amtgard weapon hit into his groin, and he had bruising on his thighs. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's a problem.
Maybe I should have put a content warning on this slide. I apologize if including it in this slide caused an issue.
No,
And
it
thank
didn't
you.
at all.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that point. It's just, can we stop all being back in the 90s? Maybe now that it's 2021?
Right.
That's a
I
big
have a
ask. I don't know.
question piggybacking off of that.
Yes.
So in my kingdom, there's a lot of romanticizing the brutality of fighting, I would say. Like, oh, it's a part of the mental game. Hit them somewhere where it hurts, like in the liver spot or in the dick, to make them more likely to block that spot. Like, come in, hit them hard in that spot, train them to want to protect that, so you can do feints and shit. And like, yeah, that's true, but also that's not great. How do I discourage that?
Yeah. Also, just yikes.
Yes, yikes.
Sorry, just to clarify, are you talking about like targeting actual injuries or weaknesses or like hitting them in the face 5 times so they block their face kind of tactic?
Usually it's not like a face thing. It's more like where the liver is, or the junk, just things that are naturally soft and weaker on people.
And they're justifying it through tactics.
I mean, it sounds like just that idea of you can get an advantage if someone's scared, genuinely scared to get hit by you in some spot, and then they like overreact to block it every time. Is that kind of the thing?
Yes, I have specifically heard on more than one occasion, come in, hit them hard in one spot. It doesn't matter if you die, just when you first start fighting someone, hit them hard in a place to train them that, oh, if I hit you there, I will hit hard. So they will start to block in that spot, so you have more ability to, like, that'll freeze them for a sec. That'll be one thing that they definitely want to do if you've trained them that I'm going to hurt you there. And I've never quite enjoyed that, but I don't know how to deal with it.
Yes.
So
Go ahead.
that kind of behavior, if it was something I heard of happening in the IM, I would want to know about it, because that is something that definitely needs to be taken care of. Speaking as IM Monarch, not just as a player. Like, that's something that you're advocating inflicting pain to the point where it blurs the line and could potentially be considered assault.
I mean, we have a code of conduct item, I forget which one, but you're definitely not allowed to hurt people here, and safety, Brittany,
I think
What's that?
it's 2 is bodily harm.
Okay, so the rules are definitely on the side of we don't hurt people here and safety is a priority. So, I mean, in theory, like in an ideal world, you would be able to bring that to a weave, bring that to your local champion in that tone. Like, hey, this person is fighting unsafely. They're encouraging other people to fight unsafely, and they could injure other players. Ideally, you'd bring that up and the weave, the champion, the kingdom champion would take it seriously and tell whoever's saying that to knock it off. And if they don't, tell them they're not allowed to play. I don't know how likely that is to happen in your kingdom with the particular group, but I just want to say that's something like that is probably what should happen. If that's not available and you just have to handle it, that's not even very good technique, to be honest, because if your strategy is to run in and swing really hard at one spot, whoever's doing that is probably telegraphing the shot. So if you can teach people to block it ahead of time and not be hurt, if you can encourage people to use more strategy in their fighting when I say strategy, I don't mean strategy that involves hurting people, just plan on targeting a couple of different places. Plan on, you can hit someone in the same spot a few times at a reasonable force and not something that hurts, and also train them to block that. I mean, that would be a valid thing. Again, these are just like, if you have to handle it personally yourself, that's some stuff you could try, but it's not as good as getting the champion to shut it down. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Another social option is to try to get some of the more prolific fighters in your area to talk about this thing and how it's not good. I don't know if they're all also saying this thing, but if you can find like one person with enough social clout to throw around a little bit who could come out to other fighters and be like, nah, that's crappy. Like sometimes that is unfortunately the fastest way.
Like curbing the behavior through some, like a role model.
Yeah. Like if you for the IM example, right? If you get Eggman to go out to a group of fighters and be like, this behavior is crappy, that is going to remedy it almost faster than a lot of other options. Sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess in my head, I was assuming that those people were the problem, but I guess if they're not, then yes, that is another good option. I'm sorry you're in that position, and I'm sorry that's not a fun position to be in, and they should not be doing that. I guess if there's no one in your kingdom that is helpful, there's probably some higher level fighters you could approach outside the kingdom that will agree that it's not cool, like Anatole or Glenn would be a couple of names that come to mind. Like if you describe that to them and use the words about unsafe and liable to hurt people, or describe a time when it did hurt someone, I'm pretty confident those two knights would be on your side to say, hey, no, not cool, don't do that.
I've certainly got a lot to think about just right now.
Yeah. And
I definitely like the part where Annette said, what you could do is just imply that they're a terrible fighter.
I mean, to be honest, it's true. I'm not saying terrible. Maybe they win sometimes. It's just a bad strategy on top of being bad for people.
Absolutely. I just thought I couldn't stop myself from thinking like, no, she just called him a lazy fighter. like the hitting like one spot to get them to block that one spot and then going somewhere else. It sounds like a perversion of that. If I make them scared to get hit in that one spot, then I'll be able to hit them in the other spot. Like, yeah.
And there's no reason, like everyone needs to judge their own level of comfort. And if someone makes you feel unsafe, or if someone is being unsafe, you never have to fight them. I mean, ideally it's not players' responsibility to avoid the missing stair. But if you're at a park and the champion isn't, if there's a problem and the champion isn't handling it and the weaves are turning a blind eye, you can always just fight someone else. There's no reason to force yourself to stay in a situation you hate. Does that make sense? I bring that up last because I always hate getting that advice, and I almost never take that advice. Just because, why should I leave the thing I want to do because someone else is a jerk? But it's still probably good advice.
Just as a heads up, we have a little more than 5 minutes remaining as for what was scheduled.
Oh.
So.
Okay, cool. I had go ahead.
It looks like what was following this is not going to be using Zoom, so we probably could extend beyond that. I don't know, is Pix still here?
Yep, I'm still here. That's
Okay.
The next thing is on Discord, so feel free to take
So,
up
yeah.
extra time.
Okay. The other things I added were just 3 different things that have been published that we don't have to talk about, but I had them in case certain questions were brought up so that I could use them as talking points. And then I do know that's in my own slides, I promise. Okay, so I had these 3 random figures in case I needed them as visual aids, and then I had a closing slide. So does anyone have general questions to toss out?
I will go after somebody else asks a question because I've been talking a lot.
How are you doing in general?
How am I doing in general? I'm doing okay. I'm happy this mid-range thing is happening, and I'm excited that I got to teach 2 classes at it.
Me too. They're delightful classes.
Thank you.
It's definitely nice to hear from other kingdoms.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we got people jumping in from, I don't think anyone's here from the Wetlands, but all the other kingdoms. I think this is a 3-kingdom class at least. Which, to be honest, that is completely fine. This has been a great audience. Quiet, what was your question?
Oh, I was just gonna, jump into something light, like I don't know. What's your take on how, old school warlords view the possible like segregating of fighting tournaments and non-males tournaments as somehow cheapening warlordhood? Or I was also going to ask how you doing.
So that first one is definitely not light.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I've encountered a little bit of like it feels like pushback or sort of like justifications of not changing things as they are. I've engaged in a lot of dialogues that felt like they kind of hit against that wall of how dare we change warlord, or it will make somehow the award lessened in some aspect, or a lot of it rings super hollow. But I don't know. I'm mostly just looking for like responses that are hard to shrug off. Like, actually, I'll just say I hadn't seen the one of the charts you've got listed there. Actually, I was wondering if you could go into that more, because data-driven seems like a really hard thing to say. Nah, that's not true. When encountering people who are against like non-men's tournaments or changing how Sword Night is progressed or things like that.
Is this the one you haven't seen?
Yeah, this one looks new, unless I just totally missed it somewhere.
Yeah, I see Stanley just jumped on. Hi, Stanley. We are like 5 minutes from the official end of the class, so I'm afraid you kind of jumped in the middle, but I believe Pix did have it recorded.
Mhm.
But to answer Quiet's question, this is from a thing Promethea did a couple years ago. And Promethea asked a bunch of Amtgarders to take a sports anxiety survey, which is a thing that's used in many different like mundane settings. So she didn't write these questions or anything. She just took an existing survey about sports anxiety and asked it to Amtgarders about did they experience these different things in a combat setting. And so the scale was from never to always, none equal never, zero equal always. And you can see, if you look, there's a very subtle pattern here. If you go down each row and highlight which group experienced these symptoms the most, you can see the highlighting showing that female players experienced almost all of these symptoms the strongest, and then non-identified players experienced one of the worry symptoms the strongest. So when we're talking about tournaments and experience in tournaments, I think this is some evidence of room for growth, room for supporting non-male players better, room for making the experience less awful. And
Yeah,
Glenn, who is not here, brought up a question before the class about stereotype threat and how that affects competition. And I don't know if this is stereotype threat or if it's something else. Stereotype threat is when you do worse at something that isn't for you, quote unquote, for you. I don't know, like if you ask women to do a math test or something, but first you show them some video about how girls can't do math, then they do worse on the test. I'm explaining it badly, but it's a real social science thing that's been documented in the real world. I don't know if that's what's happening here, but something's happening here.
Something that's showing up in the data, basically. It might be that, but it might be something else.
Yes.
Okay.
And the point that I take away from this is, yes, there's a reason to plan a tournament specifically for us, and no, that isn't some kind of special treatment.
Yeah, it definitely is. That highlights a huge, like, the way we do tournaments right now. It just seems fucking awful for certain demographics as opposed to others. Like that's.
It may be related to this delightful picture. This is from the awards committee report that was given in July, and I've just pulled one slide out of the published stuff. If you look at the second question, is the culture supportive of women and non-men who fight? And there's a majority of men who say, oh, yes, we think it's supportive. And then there's a majority of non-men who say, no, it really is not.
looking at this one, there's something here that obviously, I mean, it indicates most obviously that there is a problem for me. That last question. Women and non-men fighters in Amtgard work as hard as men do. There is agreement on both sides of the table at that point that yes, they do. So if the same level of effort is being put in, why do we not see the same type of results? Hypothetically speaking, no, I'm not asking to, try and answer that one right here.
No, right here.
No, we don't see the same results.
I mean, I'm not going to say that it's impossible for a non-male person to be in a mixed tournament, because I know that it's happened, and it's happened in different kingdoms with different players. However, it's something that happens rarely enough that the 7, 8, 9, 10 levels in the rulebook require you to win a kingdom tournament. And first of all, there's very few non-male players who would be even qualified, who are at 6, who could get one of those awards. I think, I'm just going to gesture at the first 3 slides of this talk. We have fields that sometimes are not very welcoming to anybody who's new, and it can be worse for someone who's also a woman or not a man. We have teaching that sometimes just amounts to, oh, you'll get hit till you figure it out. Repeat 5 million times, still hasn't figured anything out. And then we have just still way too much just general sexism. And I'm not saying that any one of those things is a deal breaker, but when you stack all of them on top of each other and repeat for 20 or 30 years, what you get is this.
Well, and to add to that idea of getting hit, I have inside knowledge that Pix and I were talking about very similar situations. You're getting hit by someone bigger, stronger, and older than you, and that is both a physically and emotionally difficult situation, right? Where like the experienced player who's been around for 10 years and has like the charisma and clout of being a good fighter, which does give you a lot of social power, that person is hitting you over and over and over again and demanding to know why you're not getting it. And that, I think, is like an emotional landmine.
Yes. Yeah, that's... I hope whoever was doing that hasn't also turned around to express an opinion that women don't try as hard. Because if they have, I just want to talk.
I don't think it's one person. I think that happens. I would be surprised if that didn't happen a lot.
Yes, I know. I was joking. I'm just.
Oh, no, I'm not. It was a good bit. I laughed very hard. I just had myself muted.
Coming back, no, this is a lot. Sorry.
Go ahead. I had a tangent.
This absolutely is answering my questions as to good data-driven points to sort of, I don't want to say this, but derail or give or be more convincing than a naysayer on actually progressing warlord and non-men's fighting and all that to not just a hard stop. Like this, all this data is going to be really useful. You have these linked stuff.
Yes, there's a link. This is a hyperlink down at the bottom, and I'll show these slides after the class.
Excellent.
There's also, it's worth thinking about, do you have to convince the person you're talking with for any actual reason? Because if it's just some knight who plays in one kingdom, maybe they can just have their opinion while you use that energy to plan something else and do a cool thing.
I think it's one of those that it becomes, it's one night in one kingdom in this instances, but there are enough instances of it's one night in one kingdom that it becomes a problem.
It's definitely been more than one instance of players. So having a good toolbox of convincing things will, I think it would be effective to waylay their just biases. And it would also be useful for convincing spectators, I think. So it might be a little bit of both.
So if you're, I think there is a level of like help that where that's handy, but there is also a level, especially when we use Facebook for all of our communication, where when you continue to argue with somebody, not you specifically, the general you, when someone continues to argue with someone who is clearly engaging in bad faith, what you're doing is dragging that argument in front of the people that it is about over and over and over again. And that can be, even just seeing those arguments happening can be incredibly exhausting.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the public, the bad faith discourse in public forums like that, I've gotten real good at sniffing out that part, and I try, and at a certain point I'm poking people. Most of it's been like one-on-one talks, because at that point, if you're arguing in bad faith, you just stop responding, and that kind of is the end of the conversation. But no, absolutely. I'm going to note that down, actually. The having the fight with someone, even though you've got good intentions, might be just giving the bad faith person more of a platform.
Sometimes, not always, and it's hard to know. Just a thing to consider.
I'm not saying don't argue with people. I have no standing to say don't argue with people, right? It's just
how dare.
I'm not sure how I want to say this. I think it was more useful to do things like, for example, put a non-men's tournament into the IM Copera and get that as a thing that's going to happen whenever we get to play again. I feel like that's going to be more useful than first getting every last old timer in the Iron Mountains to be on board with the idea.
I definitely agree with that, yeah.
You just detour around people and move forward.
Yeah, definitely. You don't have to change everyone's mind. Absolutely. Not Brittany. Somebody else was talking. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you only need 60 votes to pass the Senate. You only need a majority to make change. There's no point in arguing with stubborn dinosaurs who just want to be the biggest boy on the freaking hill. Let them have their hill. We don't need them.
You only need like 7 people to swing an Iron Mountains all thing.
Ouch.
I mean, it was
true. Yeah. Not always. But no, absolutely. Working with the intent of trying to convince everybody all the time absolutely is not going to work. Then I'm content to have them yammering at me, because I'll be like, oh no, we're voting though. Sorry, we voted yesterday.
Yeah, I think a good selling point that goes with, if you can make changes sound like, hey, we are keeping everything we have now and then we're adding cool stuff on top of it. I think that's an easier selling point than you're going to take something away from you just because. So with tournaments, as an example, we still have open tournaments. Anybody can go fight in them. Anyone can still win them. So whoever, like all of the players who are, the tiny fraction of players who are up here at 6, 7, 8, those people are not losing any chance they might want to still compete. However, we're keeping all of that stuff, and then we're saying, also in addition to this, we're doing a new thing. And that might open doors for those of us who are, here at 0, 1, 2, 3. The only thing that's being taken away from anyone is maybe some sense of being exclusive, or having the top feel, maybe it won't feel as special, but we're not actually cancelling any events or removing any of those. At least that's been the argument I've been trying to make, and I really hope it's true.
So what I'm wondering if maybe there's some perception of not necessarily exclusivity per se, of no, there are not lost opportunities, but they see people gaining additional opportunities they don't have access to.
I think that's a valid point. I mean, if I can just butt in, like, but there's something to be said about how narrow the path to a 10 and the warrior path has become. And that's a problem that goes beyond sort of like equality slash, there's a better word than equality, I can't think of it right now. But like, you know, even when we're talking about male fighters, the path to a 10 is so narrow and almost unobtainable that we have a serious bottleneck in the Iron Mountains. And that speaks to perhaps problems with the path altogether. But that's not necessarily like, I don't know, like a non-male fighting problem. That's a like, hey, fighting, maybe we all need to do some introspection.
Good luck. Sally.
Yeah, I know it's not their strong suit, but worth maybe doing anyway.
Someone who got a masterhood and a knighthood in the last couple of years. And it was relatively non-controversial from at least what I've seen. People haven't told me about it to my face if it was. At no point did anybody look at me and say, yeah, but other people can do the things that you do. Therefore, that's less valid. Kent was AIBOD president too, so like, why should we award you for that? No other path is like, other people do these things, therefore you are not good enough. That is exclusively a sword thing. So.
And also the opportunity thing that Fitz said is like, Dallin mentioned it earlier in the chat, equity versus equality. Like those are two different things. That equality is everyone has one box to stand on, but equity is your super short person has 3 boxes to stand on, and then, you know, you go down from there, like based on need.
No box for quiet.
Right.
Thank you. Equity
Dude.
was the word I was looking for, so thank you.
I need no boxes.
We
And
might
com-
actually have to dig a hole for you to stand in to kind of level things out a little bit.
Oh no! You start saying handicap, and people they'll freak out. To Brittany's point of no one saying no one ever walked up and said, "Oh, other people can be badass with great attitudes too. What makes you so special?" I've never had someone come up to me and be like, "Wow, you're a really good fighter. I didn't expect that," or anything to that regard. Like, I didn't expect your. Like there's nobody walking up to me and saying, "Wow, I had my preconceptions about you, so clearly you've surpassed them with your fighting talent." Like it, I don't need the whole dig, Doug, but I definitely don't need the box. I had a point. I lost it.
Well, I mean, you don't get that kind of talk toward an artisan either. Like I didn't expect you to be that good at, in my case, chainmail, or I didn't expect you to be that strong of a designer when it comes to garb. You don't hear that like you do with fighting.
Yeah.
Ludicrous, yeah.
And now you bring it up. No one's ever said that to me about crafting either. I mean, like the things I've heard about crafting has been, "Oh, hey, that's a cool thing you made." Or, "Oh, hey, this thing you made is pretty cool. And here's some ideas for how you could fix this or that about it for next time."
Well, and to kind of add on that, like the sword path is the only path where you have to beat another player to progress. Every other path is focused on self-improvement, whereas the sword path is the only one that requires that you be better than someone else. So there is sort of an element of, I don't want to go so far as to say toxicity, but it's there in the way that if you want to move up the sword path, you have to compete, and you I don't know, you have to become better than your friends. And that's tough. I think that unfortunately, because of the personality types that sort of competition tends to attract, are not terribly introspective or careful, that it might just take time for us to realize when all of our sword knights are pushing 60, that perhaps we have totally boxed out a lot of really talented folks. And it just might take all of our sword knights kind of aging out for anybody to notice that there's something wrong with that system.
So what you're saying is that that's the only objective path and we should definitely keep it that way.
No, I mean,
no, I know that's not what you were saying.
I know you know. I'm so pressure when I hear the phrase, it's an objective path.
It's an exclusive path. It is a path that I think
in all of the paths, there is a level of being better than other people, right? That is inherent in the masterhood process. You should be in the top 15%, top 10%, top 2%, top 1%, whatever. But it is not about being the only one, right?
Right.
And that's the things I do better than somebody whose first day it is. But I don't have to do it better than somebody else who has a master rose or somebody who has a 10th. It's not a direct one-to-one.
Right. I mean, we may see an exponential curve like the one we see on this slide for every path. At a point, maybe I just don't want to finish my seams and trim my loose threads and use brocade fabric when I'm making garb. And maybe that means I'm never going to advance past 6. That doesn't mean that the dropout rate for each subsequent level is as steep as it is on the sword path.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I did, back forever ago, I was trying to look at that and then life happened and then I didn't, but I was going to make one of those coves to each path and see what the difference was, and then I just got involved with other responsibilities and ended up not doing it.
It's fair.
Even without that.
And it's kind of funny.
Go ahead.
You look at the comparison as far as what's required at higher level orders, and for example, Dragon versus Warrior. We mentioned earlier how 7th and above requires winning a kingdom level tournament. The first time winning a kingdom level tournament is mentioned in Dragon is 10th.
Also, that's fundamentally flawed because our ANS tournaments are almost as flawed as our sword tournaments.
So
I take for another day.
So if I run the Inter-Kingdom ANS thing from last year, does that mean I should have a 10th dragon? I'm joking.
No, I'll just give you a masterhood.
Seconded.
Sorry, you're getting very far off topic.
I'll start it immediately. I want to pull it back just for a minute because I loved it so much, of the aging out all of the ancient warlords. I mean, we could put that just on the back burner as literally the die mad about it plan.
Cold
I think they'd be the ones dying mad about it, though.
Yeah, I would hope we have a more immediate solution, but that one sounds awesome too.
I mean, if we just I don't want to talk about warlords dying because that seems a little dire, but if we just let it get to the point that warlords are too old to compete, I mean, eventually, I guess, knighthood on the sword path will become generational, where you have to wait until the reigning warlords are in their 60s or 70s, and then we'll see a whole new wave. Actually, we'll see one new warlord per region, and then they will be the reigning warlord until they are too old, and then we'll have another one new warlord. It'll be a sort of a Highlander thing where there can only be one.
I have bad news. It's kind of how it already works.
That is silly.
Dynasties already.
I'm so sorry, but
Dude, if we all got to compete against Augustus, we're going to be 40 years out. Dang it.
There was a generation of warlords before this one, and they were worse. This is an improvement to some extent.
Well, and I mean,
And so I
It's
do
like-
think we should maybe move faster than like waiting for like Rogue stage out.
Oh God, we are in Highlander, but now we're in Highlander 2, and that's so much worse.
I have been talking to Annette about this, and it might be sort of like this idea that, like, sure, fine. You want to be a warlord, cool, great. There can only be one. You're the best. Congratulations. Here's your trophy. But then maybe we should look at a way of like decoupling knighthood from the warlord thing, because at least I see knighthood, and maybe this is just my personal ethos and it's not what Amtgard thinks, but like knights should be there to teach people. And because we've made knighthood on the sword path so extremely exclusive, there aren't that many knights out there to learn from.
We should do it for all of them.
Hey,
Well, I
hey,
agree with
Stanley.
that also.
Uncouple masterhood from knighthood, because masterhood is about a skill and knighthood is about your character.
Hey, Stanley.
Yes.
Why don't you? But do you want to start a discussion on that on the IM page? Because I guarantee you see a
check it
lot more
out.
support than you think.
Maybe I'm working on something else that is very much about supporting the community, but you'll see it soon.
Okay.
Cool.
It's everyone here agrees with me. It's okay.
Is that Devin putting in an opinion that nobody could hear?
Agrees with us that knighthood and masterhood should be uncoupled. Unfortunately, we need like 90% of the COM.
Also, no one can not hear Devin. He'll make sure of that.
Well, or we're gonna just have to come up with like, I don't know, that like community service is gonna have to happen with or without knights. Like that's just sort of the thing. There's plenty of knights that are interested, but I think that it's something that we have made so exclusive that, I don't know, people that would otherwise want to be huge contributors are backing down from that because they are intimidated by the knighthood. They're like, I want to be doing things for the community, but I'm afraid to put a toe out of line. I'm afraid to make myself a target by standing up to say, I would like to own this or I would like to lead this. And as a result, people that would otherwise be like adding to our community are afraid to do so. And that's a huge loss for everybody.
Well, and knighthood standards are so ridiculous because we've tied them to masterhoods, which is an unachievable standard for most people. So by the time you get to knighthood, you're so beat up that all you want to do is nap for the next 6 years. And then we're like, why do none of our knights engage? Yeah, it's a
I think that's valid. And I think that like
class, but
it's definitely worth saying that like there should be some level of achievement tied to knighthood. Like you can't just roll up in your first 2 years and become a knight. That's a little bit ridiculous. But at the same time, like, yeah, if every single masterhood curve looks like this one, we're like, yeah, like you said, burning out the people that could be massive community contributors and filtering out a lot of people that would otherwise be great, but just couldn't make that tournament win,
Annette, do you have data on the other award paths? Because comparing this chart that you have up with like dragon or owl or something, or all the other ones, and being like, hey, if it's really like horrifying, and you're like, here's warrior, that would also be super data-driven, convincing in general of, oh, something's wrong.
So I don't have it on this scale. I have something like it for just the Iron Mountains that I posted about this time a year ago, maybe, or maybe early 2020, somewhere around there. I went through all the active IMOs and I made some curves through the different paths to be like, here's how many people have this order of the roads. Because a lot of people are just like stuck on a first or zero of something, and I was hoping our local parks would use that sheet as a thing to go through and be like, oh wait, I had no idea they only had one Smith or whatever. But I think some of them did.
I don't know why you would do that. I love doing that every time I'm in Monarchy, and I'm like, they have how many of what? Of that thing they're really good at, that they've been good at for years.
I mean, there's an assumption thing where it's like, oh, Brittany's already a master rose. We don't need to give Brittany something, and in this case, it's true.
Poor lions.
Or what leads to the scenario Quiet was just talking about. You have this assumption that they've been so good at this for so long, they must be at least X order of whatever. And it's work that's been being ignored for years because they are way lower than that, but people assume they're not.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want the curves without the masculine feminine part is what I assume was an entirely manual process. But Quiet, if you just wanted the curves, Ken Walker could probably pull those for you. He pulls orc reports all the time. And so without the gender breakdown, he could pull out what just like the progressions look like.
Yes.
If I could get it with the gender breakdown, because this shows a clear disparity between men and non-men. If that was at all feasible, I think that'd be the thing that would be like, check out how there's no difference here. There's no difference here. Here's this one.
For you. And then I just went through and as a manual process assigned masculine, feminine.
It wasn't quite manual. I had a software package that looked at the first name and matched it against
nice.
Some kind of list. But yes, it's Ken Walker probably can't do it by just running something on the ilk as it is. I'm not even convinced you could make the curve because there's so many missing levels. Like public service announcement. If you are a prime minister, if you know a prime minister, please put a number in on the level when you put in a road.
Honestly.
I just look at my orc and I just cry myself to sleep every time.
It's a shame you don't know the prime minister. Nobody could help you with that.
Oh, Kelly, I'm so sorry. I forgot you were the PM.
Well, I think part of that was the import of the old orc. Like it didn't transfer the numbers over right. And on a couple of people, I have definitely, at one point when I was a prime minister, I don't remember if it was in the park I started in or if it was when I was at my current park. I started going through, and each person I went through and put in a new award and deleted the old one and put in a new one so that it was formatted correctly. But that is like a super work intensive undertaking because it is there's no easy way to fix it in the awards.
The fact that there's no edit button on the org is wild.
Yeah.
Or the lack of autofill in certain fields drives me nuts.
Or the fact that every award is listed as order of the, and so you can't search owl by O or like dragon by D. You just have to scroll through order of the whatever. Yeah. It's not ideal.
Well, we're half an hour past the time this was scheduled. If you... Is that someone leaving?
No, that's someone asking to come in.
Okay, cool. Keep adding people. I don't care. Like, I don't have to go. I just noticed.
Yeah. No, this is good chats. I like it.
Yeah.
What is it? I should get food.
Oh, food.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is I need to see about food and whether I need to go get it or make something.
I need to eat to live.
I watched a video about Elf Makeup did a collaboration with Chipotle, and so now I feel like I need a burrito bowl.
Well, if we're kind of wrapping up, I wanted to say something to end the class, although with this group, it's probably not necessary. I'm still going to say it. The 2 points I really wanted to make were, thank you for coming. This was awesome. Please continue to listen to players in your own parks and your own kingdoms. And like, especially if they bring up a concern we didn't go over. I think what I'm trying to say is specifically don't do this. Someone comes up to you and says, hey, as a woman, this thing bothers me. Please don't answer that with, well, I didn't say Hugh Lightning say that bothered her, so clearly it's not about gender and you're overreacting. I don't think anyone in this class is going to do that, but just please don't. That's not the point of the class. You got one person's experiences. Please go on taking other people's experiences seriously. And the second point is just another obvious one, just to say this was a class. I put in a bunch of research and tried to prepare so that what I said would, be informed, be welcoming, be phrased in not a negative way, although I definitely didn't stick to that. But I put a lot of effort into the class before it happened, and most conversations it's just going to be like two people saying what's on their mind about a thing that happened. And nobody should expect it to involve the same level of work as a class. Like if you're bringing something up in your kingdom, you don't have to do this amount of research before you say something on your mind. If you're in a leadership position, you definitely can't expect anyone to put in a ton of work before they just tell you what they're thinking. And I know that seems obvious, but I just wanted to make sure it got said.
Thank you so much.